Hello guys, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto true soulmate was a girl born 1000 years ago and she returned for him? If you enjoy this video then please like, share and do comment. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. So let us start the story.
The seventh Hokage Naruto Uzumaki walked through the garden of his lovely house. He passed the beautiful flowers planted by him, his wife and daughter. He smiled as he caught the sight of a few sunflowers that reminded him of his two heims. His white cap with flames on it and his title, Nanadem Hokage, stood proudly on his shoulders. He turned the knob of the door slowly and with a great big smile shouted, "I'm home." After a few seconds of his voice echoed throughout the house, he heard two sets of footsteps coming from the house, one from the kitchen and the last one from upstairs. Knowing who would end up greeting him first, he held out his arms and crouched down, and from the corner his lovely daughter ran to him squealing, "Touchin'! You're home." His little Hima ran right into his waiting arms and Naruto lifted his little girl into the air as she squealed and gave a big hug and kiss on the cheek, which she happily returned. "Hello Himaheim, did you have a good day?" he asked as he tickled his little girl, and she laughed out her response. "Touchin', stop, ha tickles?" Daddy's little girl laughed as she playfully slapped his hands away. "Tucson, you're home early." His eldest son Boruto walked down the stairs. He missed the times when he used to run into his arms like Himawari did and couldn't help but hate himself for not being there for him as much as he wanted to. Naruto gave his son a great big smile as he proclaimed, "Yep, your old man got some time off to spend with you too." He told the children as he put Himawari down and patted her on the head, and then did the same to Boruto, much to his fake dismay. But everyone could see the smile he made after his dad finished ruffling his hair. "Oh really, knowing our luck war's going to break out and be forced to call you back to work." Boruto smiled at his father, though a part of him expected and accepted his father would be forced to go back to work like always. "No worries, I made Shika and Kakashi-sensei promise to handle all matters of war until after my vacation is finished." Naruto smiled at his two kids as they released a laugh at his joke, though Naruto was completely serious, having threatened to burn every Icha book in existences and make sure his advisor won't get a good night's sleep for the next 10 years, if his family time was interrupted this time. "That's not good Naruto-kun, that could very well happen." Naruto had a great big smile as he looked at the love of his life, Hinata Uzumaki, his wife. "Don't worry, I'm sure the guys can keep the village intact by the time I come back." He reassured his wife and then looked at two pairs of eyes the same blue as his own. "I promise nothing, short of some super powerful being coming to end the world, will keep me from you two, and I never go back on my world. Because that's your ninja way." Hinata, Boruto and Himawari all finished, and Naruto did his nervous tick and rubbed the back of his head, and he grinned at his family. "But Touchin', Tucson, that happened just last month." Both Himawari and Boruto spoke at the same time. "Hey, no worries, everyone knows that the end of the world doesn't come about till a year after someone's last attempt." Naruto gave the nice guy poses before his son broke up. "But knowing your luck, this would the 100,000th chance that it happened and the world did end tonight," Boruto sarcastically told his father as he walked to his mother. Naruto hugged his wife and kissed her, getting an "ah" from his daughter and "yuck" from his son, who was hiding a blush. "Hello Hinaheim," Naruto whispered huskily as he hugged and kissed his wife, sending a shiver down her spine. "Welcome home Naru-kun," Hinata told her husband as she gave him a kiss, watching as his blue orbs shined with pure happiness at the greeting. This was what he's always wanted. Someone to come home to, a loving wife and children to greet him, the family of his own he's always wanted. Naruto smelled an all too familiar heavenly aroma in the air, and he started to drool as he asked in a hopeful voice, "What's cooking?" "Beautiful," he asked his wife, and was delighted to see the familiar tinge of red on her adorable cheeks. Hinataheim will always be Hinataheim, no matter how much time passes, she never changes. He chuckled in thought as he nuzzled her neck and breathed in her wonderful scent, embarrassing her more. "En Naru-kun, I was just cooking some," Hinata stuttered as she glowed a bright red, still not used to her Naru-kun's wonderful affection after all these years. "Ramen," Boruto and Himawari shouted at the same time. Even though they didn't enjoy the food as much as Naruto, they still loved it almost as much as their father. Hinaheim, Did I ever tell you how lucky I am to have such a wonderful wife? He purred into her ear, enjoying the reaction and couldn't wait for what would happen tonight. It's been way too long since I last had her. Why yes, all the time. She stuttered and Naruto put on a thoughtful expression before he said. Not nearly enough, as he took his Hime's hand and lead her back into the kitchen. I swear, you probably knew she was cooking ramen and rushed over here. Boruto snickered as his father sputtered a reaction. Nonsense, I wouldn't do something like that. Naruto said, avoiding eye contact, and Boruto raised an accusing eyebrow at him and tension rose in the air. Touchin' you're drooling, Himawari squeaked and Naruto quickly blushed and brought up his sleeve to wipe it, getting a laugh out of his family. Ah, ha, ah. I swear Tucson, you have a sixth sense for when mom's cooking ramen. Boruto laughed before his mother chirped in. No, he just has an Anbuon special ramen watch, so he always knows when I cook it. Hinata laughed and the whole family laughed harder. Naruto was looking away, whistling an innocent tone, before everyone looked at him with suspicion, before they all broke up in laughter again. They all had tears in their eyes as they laughed. It's been way too long since they could all relax and laugh together as a family. The whole family sat down and started talking adamantly about their day as they enjoyed the feast prepared by their loving wife. As they finished, they chilled in the living room for a bit, until it was all time to go to bed. Naruto tucked in Himawari with a good night kiss on the cheek, before he went to do the same to Boruto, despite his constant protest that he's too big for it. As Naruto tucked his son in bed, Boruto asked, Tucson, do you think we could go fishing tomorrow? Sure son, I promise. Naruto whispered as Boruto's eyes started to drop. Good, and, Yan, remember? You never go back on your word. He told his father before he nodded off to sleep. Naruto walked up and gave his son a kiss on the head, that he wouldn't have been able to get away with if he was awake. I know, and I will keep it. He whispered before he said, good night, and went to join his beloved wife in bed. Naruto walked in and was greeted to the wonderful sight of his wife, wearing a see-through lavender dress, her twins on full display and two swollen nubs showing she was aroused as she laid on the bed waiting for her husband to claim her. Naruto's jaw dropped at the sight. Her silky black hair was dripping wet from a fresh shower and she had snow-white pale skin that contrasted perfectly with her lavender underwear. She gazed at her husband with wanton desire in her lavender eyes. Naruto gulped as he felt the all-too-familiar stir in his pants and gave a slight growl as he succumbed to his own lust, that wanted nothing more to hear her scream her name in passion. It had been far too long since they last had some intimacy. Naruto crept his way to his wife like a predator stalking its prey. Oh, the irony! Years ago, she was the one stalking him, and now she loved the power trip she had every time she saw her husband's eyes clouded with desire for her. She didn't need to chase after him now, instead he was the one chasing her. Naru-kun, would you like to have some fun tonight? Hinata purred with a predator smirk of her own as her husband dumbly nodded. In bed she was a whole other person. Great, because I was thinking about us, maybe having another child. Hinata asked, pleaded her husband. The sudden suggestion brought her husband back to his senses and out of the daze he was in, but he was still left wanting her and knew that he couldn't deny her anything she wanted when she was half naked and oozing nuality. Hime, you know I would love and willingly do anything you say, but are you sure? I mean, I haven't really been father of the year since I became Hokage. Naruto told her, fight back the urge to just take her and at least talk about this before she ends up pregnant again. Yes, I am Himawari and Boruto are growing up fast and I know for a fact they would love another sibling to play with and I want to have someone to baby while I wait for grandchildren. Hinata told him, crossing her legs in hypnotic manner and tempting Naruto, just take her. I know that, but I missed so much of their lives, what if I do it again and mess up this time too? Naruto was almost crying. He loved his family with all his heart and would give up being Hokage in a heartbeat if he had to. Naruto, I know you're worried and I also know you always wanted a big family and you also want to restore your mother's clan. Hinata walked up to her husband, swaying her hips seductively as she did, causing Naruto to groan at the unfair adventure she had. But I almost lost Boruto. He was silenced by his wife finger as she gave a hot and fierce look. Now you listen to me, Naruto Uzumaki, we love you. I love you, Himawari loves you, and so does Boruto, so don't you ever say that you almost lost one of us, because we love you and are here to stay. Hinata shouted as her husband and a lone tear dropped at hearing that as he hugged his wife. I know Haim, I know, I just don't want to make my family suffer like I had. I hate myself for making Bolt and Hima feel like they grew up without a father. Naruto sobbed into her neck. Naruto-kun, do you remember what I called you all those years ago, when I told you what I think of you? Hinata asked as she lifted Naruto's head and they stared into each other's eyes as lavender orbs crossed blue. Naruto remembered the time. It was the first time someone wholeheartedly believed in him. The first time someone supported, and it was the first time his wife gave him the strength to keep moving forward. It was then that he fell in love her. As her husband nodded, Hinata continued. You are my proud failure. You may fall down. You may make mistakes, but you always get back up and make it right. You did that with Boruto and you will do it for our future children. Hinata told him determinedly, and Naruto fall in love with her all over again at seeing the same strength that saved him those years ago and left him enamored with her. Naruto gave a chuckle as he felt his desires stir at seeing his wife show her claws and exactly why he falls in love with her, and he knew he lost this round. You're right, you always are. I can never beat you. It's a good thing you're always here to knock some sense into me. He told her as he gazed into the lavender moons she has for eyes. Hinata brought her hand up, cupping her Naruto-kun's cheek and stroking his whiskers like she did all those years ago on the battlefield where he almost gave up hope. Of course, I'll always be by your side, because I love you and I always will. She whispered as she kissed him. As the two broke apart, Hinata looked at him with pleading eyes. Does that mean? Her husband cut her off. Yes, he told her, pulling her body into his so he could feel all of her ample bosom and delicious curves. Let's make our family bigger, Haim, he growled before he attacked her lips with his, causing her to release a very, very happy squeal, moan in delight as his tongue tasted the moist cavern of her mouth and their tongues tasted and battled each other. Having missed the sweet taste of each other for so long. As the two broke apart, breathing heavily as sweat began to form on their brow, Hinata breathed out, good, because I need you now. It's been far too long and I can't wait any longer. As the words left her mouth, Naruto was using his teeth pulled the dress off of her and his tongue and hands caressed her divine body. As the dress fell to the floor, Naruto kissed his wife with hunger and they continued their battle of tongues while Hinata wrapped her bare legs around his waist and arms around his neck as her husband carried her off to bed to claim her. Naruto-kun was just barely stopped by the silencing seals as the two soulmates consummated their love again. A very pleased and satisfied Naruto was lying in bed on his side. His skin was sweaty and boiling to the touch. His hair was disheveled after the hours of making sweet, sweet love to his gorgeous wife. In his arms was an equally if not more so pleased and satisfied Hinata. Her sweaty skin was sticking to his. Her long midnight blue hair was disheveled as it spread all over the bed and her lover. Both were still attached at the waist as close as humanly possible, loving every second of them being connected with their soulmate. Naruto's hand was stroking Hinata's exposed stomach lovely and his wife gave a sigh of content from his minstrels. So Naru-kun, what do you think we should name our latest addition to the family? His blue-haired lover asked. Well, let's see, how about Kurama? Naruto grinned at his wife and he heard a certain fox choke in the back of his mind. Kurama Uzumaki has a nice ring to it, I like it. Hinata smiled as she snuggled into her husband's embrace more. And if it's a girl? Hinata questioned. Well, you pick the name, you're better at it than I am. Naruto told her, his head buried in her hair. No, I named both Boruto and Himawari, so it's only right you name at least two of our children now. Akanami for Red Wave, that is assuming she is born with the Uzumaki red hair. If not, I'll think of something when I see her. I want to make sure her name will mean something and show how special she is in her own right. Naruto told his wife after a moment of thought. Akanami, I like it and I hope we do have a child with your mother's hair one day. Hinata said, and she hoped she could give Naruto more children. As Hinata closed her eyes, her blonde lover started speaking. You know, sometimes I wish I never became Hokage. This jolted Hinata from her sleep and she was about to attack the person on instinct, because her Naruto-kun would never utter those words, but stopped because she knew her lover was the real deal. Only the real Naruto could make her feel so good. Feeling the jolt and the slight, but almost fatal gentle fist strike, Naruto went to explain. Don't get me wrong, I love the village and happy that I achieved my dream, but if I had known that I wouldn't get as much time with my family I would have waited until Bolt, Hima and any other children we had were grown up. Naruto told her, a tinge of regret in his voice. Hinata sighed, knowing her husband still felt guilty for how his job took him away from their family too much and would probably always feel guilty about it. Naruto-kun, it's not your fault, the village needed you and we couldn't ask you to give up your dream for us. Naruto kissed Hinata as she said that and then pulled her closer as he whispered, no, you're wrong. This what we have here, you, Bolt, Hima. All this was my real dream and what I always truly wanted. I would give up being Hokage any day, to enjoy living with my family, to always come home to someone. To you means more to me than anything else. Naruto told her and Hinata smiled. Naruto-kun, I love, Hinata said before she fell asleep. I love you, Hinata-hime, with all my heart and soul. Naruto told her before he too closed his eyes, but before he did he had one last thought. I love this life, but if I had the chance I would make sure I didn't neglect all of you, even if it meant giving up being Hokage. If I could do it over I would make sure I returned your love sooner, my hime. With that the seventh Hokage closed his eyes and the world faded away as his beloved slept soundly in his arms. Naruto woke up with a yawn, noticing the familiar lack of warmth to his side and the lack of a hot body next to him. Hime must have woke up and let me sleep in for once, he thought, stretching with a yawn. He felt the odd tug of clothing, he was sure he went to bed naked. Hime must have dressed me, too. Damn, I must have been exhausted to sleep through that. Naruto swung his legs to the side of bed, not noticing that his legs didn't touch the floor like they usually did. With an odd thump, Naruto touched the floor. Naruto's nose twitched, his face crunched up in disgust. What that hell is that smell? I swear, Boruto, if this is one of your pranks, you're going to get it. He shouted, his voice funny from holding his nose. Naruto took a step forward, he tripping on something. He rolled forwards until he crashed into something. Ow! Naruto whined, rubbing the bump on his head. Damn, that hurt. I can't wait to have some of Hime's delicious breakfast. This day is starting out horrible so far. He whined in his head, he couldn't wait to start the day properly with a good breakfast. Naruto. A familiar voice shouted through a bang on his door. Awake now, Naruto turned to see his old sensei clothed in full shinobi gear. Instincts kicked in like a switch, Naruto's demeanor changed entirely, no longer was he the goofy fun-loving dad and husband. His blue eyes darkened and the Hokage in him came out full force. In Hokage mode Naruto spoke with authority and a slight edge, swinging the door open. Iruka, this better be good. I gave Shika and Kakashi strict orders not to disturb me. What is so important that you had to come and get me? Iruka gave a stunned look at seeing Naruto speak this way. Naruto heard alarms going off in his head, looking at Iruka. Inspecting him carefully, he saw that the man's face was younger, had the single scar across his nose, and the familiar ponytail. He looked exactly the same except. Naruto examined Iruka's face again and saw that it looked over 20 years younger. Naruto's deep blue eyes narrowed, locking on the imposter in front of him. His feet moved slightly to prepare to take out the threat. Iruka, seeing Naruto focusing on him with a threatening look in his eyes, went to speak. Naruto. He was cut off by Naruto's body flickering. Naruto's body seemed to refuse his commands, slamming into Iruka's legs. The older man lost his footing, falling into the wall behind him, effectively knocking him out. Ow, what the hell was that? My body refused to move how I wanted it to. Naruto thought, rubbing the new bump on his head, trying to get up only to fall on his butt as his legs moved the wrong way. Annoyed, Naruto looked at the imposter, assuming it was his fault he wasn't moving properly. His eyes widened, looking at the room he was in. It wasn't his room. Well, it was, except it was the room in his apartment building from when he was genin. Naruto looked down to see he was wearing the pajamas he favored as a kid, and stubby little legs and arm from not eating right as a child. Looking around his apartment, he saw that everything was how he remembered it. Clothes and ramen cups scattered about, mold growing all over the place, and stains from ramen and various things all over the place. It even had the same disgusting smell to it. Yuck, did I really used to be that much of a slob before Hinaheim came into my life? Naruto struggled to get off the floor, though having more success this time, despite the awkwardness with his body. Looks like a five senses illusion, coupled with distortion of motion control and coordination. or even a jutsu that disrupts nervous signals themselves. He thought, flexing his hand, and it felt and moved weirdly compared to what he wanted. Thank Kami-sama for Hinataheim teaching me so much about genjutsu after we got together. I wouldn't have recognized or named the effects if I was still my ignorant pre-Hinataheim days. Naruto recalled, identifying the symptoms in seconds. Naruto growled in irritation. Damn fox. He's going to pay for slacking off and letting me get caught in a genjutsu. Grumbling, and after a minute of intense concentration, Naruto stopped the flow of his chakra. He quickly released a pulse that would remove any genjutsu within 10 meters. If any Anbu were in the area, they'd be notified by the spike of chakra. Naruto looked around, still seeing his old apartment and that his body was still his 12-year-old self. He was irritated even more, but remained calm. Something his senseis all made sure he practiced a lot, and cried tears of joy when Hinata succeeded in teaching him what they failed to do. Okay, it's not a genjutsu. Could it be a mental jutsu? No, Jinchuriki have an innate mastery of their minds. Not even Ino could oppose me in here, and she couldn't enter without permission. Well, not without being eaten anyway. Naruto considered, entering his thinking pose with difficulty, and pondered further. If it's not a mental jutsu or a genjutsu, that leaves a mental genjutsu where the target is trapped in an illusion within his or her own mind, or the mind of the caster. But most genjutsu of that caliber require visual prowess like Itachi's Tsukuyomi. Sasuke and Sarada are the only ones with the Sharingan now, and only Sasuke would be able to cast it. I don't feel his chakra with our resonance, so it can't be him. Naruto pondered, his brow furrowed in concentration. He was reaching his limit. Okay, if it's not of the genjutsu or mental jutsu class, then it has to be a ninjutsu. One that changes the environment, based on the target's memories and thoughts, with a self-applying feature to prevent release from chakra pulses, cast over the area. Naruto smirked, figuring out the jutsu used on him. If that's the case, I just need to blow it away with a large dose of chakra. Naruto smirked maliciously, as he raising his chakra to what he assumed should be roughly 5% and released a pulse of chakra. If his calculations are correct, the pulse should reach outward to about a diameter of 5 kilometers, which would be almost the size of the Konohagakure. Cure. The fake Iruka awoke just at the time of the chakra release and felt the immense chakra wave that originated from his student in Naruto. He thought in astonishment and fear, because the amount of chakra released was insane from an academy student, and he almost peed himself from it. When Naruto was done, he was shaken that whatever jutsu he was in didn't come undone. Whatever patience he had was lost as frustration reached its peak. That's it, I don't know what the hell this jutsu is, but no more playing the fuck around. He shouted with ferocity, scaring the Iruka, with how much anger was held in those few words. Naruto closed his eyes and focused the yang chakra of the Sage of Six Paths gifted to him by Super Gramps. With much greater difficulty than he was used to, he brought out a single Truth Seeker ball composed of all nature elements. This Truth Seeker ball will neutralize any jutsu or chakra it comes in contact with. No matter the jutsu used, this will undo it. Naruto spoke out loud, a crazed glint in his eyes and perspiration from the effort he had to use. Iruka looked at the black orb, fearful, his chakra going wild from an instinctual reaction to it. But as both Iruka and Naruto stared at the orb, a creak appeared in it. Naruto stared dumbly. It's not supposed to do that. Looking at the orb, more cracks appeared, and before he knew it, boom, the orb of destruction exploded, sending Naruto into the wall and forcing Iruka to stay down. Rubbing his head, Naruto grumbled, "Fuck," looking towards where he was just a few seconds ago. He spotted a hole in what was his apartment and made an even bigger mess than there already was. "I'm so glad I don't need to clean this up," he thought, turning to see a few of the windows broken. He couldn't stop a single tear at the sight of a fake Mr. Yuki, his precious plant that survived even Pain's assault, the one his Hinataheim gave him in secret as children. Lying on the floor, his pot knocked over and broken, his roots destroyed. Naruto stood up, wincing in pain, his body covered in all sorts of cuts and bruises, pajamas slightly singed. Okay, this is definitely not a genjutsu, it hurt way too much to be an illusion. He surveyed the room and the damage. What the hell is going on here? The seventh Hokage roared. Iruka, seeing that Naruto calmed down somewhat and stopped doing crazy things and recovered from his own injuries, went to speak. When Naruto noticed, he immediately had another idea. Wait, if I am trapped, then they most likely want to either keep me here out of the way or want information. That would explain why everything looks like it did from my memories. But something doesn't feel right. If they wanted information, it would have been more effective to make sure everything was the same and as close to real life as possible. But there are also details that I shouldn't remembered, or at least I don't think so. I didn't remember them until I saw them. Better ask Ino about that when I get back. He mused, getting off track. Putting his mind once again on track, he finished his thoughts. If they wanted information, they would be spying on me, somehow. It's possible the people here are actual disguised as my friends and loved ones to trick me. In which case, he grinned at the fake Iruka, a menacing glint in his eyes, and the man held his tongue from seeing it. I need to escape and find out what these bastards have done to my family. Naruto focused, trying to get the fox's chakra to change his appearance. But he was barely able to summon it up and was only able to lengthen the nails of a single hand. Looking at his mist-matched claw. They must have drugged me since I can't use chakra right. Maybe that's why my truth seeker ball failed and why my body doesn't move right. Iruka was looking at the claw before Naruto disappeared, feeling a kick to his side. Looking at what hit him, he saw Naruto awkwardly positioned over him as if he was about to fall over. Naruto swayed and steadied himself by putting a hand on Iruka's shoulder. Now recovered from his failed attempt to body flicker, he lowered his clawed hand at Iruka's manhood. Iruka's sweat dropped and he was afraid of the sharp claw that were ready to neuter him as it hovered dangerously close to him. If you don't want to lose what makes you a man, you will tell me what the fuck you've done with my family or else. As if reinforcing his threat, the claw floating near Iruka's crotch went closer, skillfully cutting some of his pants, but left the boxers and skin underneath it untouched. Family? What the hell is he talking about? This can't be Naruto. Iruka thought. He wearily eyed the claw centimeters from his manhood and gulped. Iruka shook his fear off and questioned the person disguised as his student. Who are you, and what have you done with Naruto? Iruka asked. Anger flared in his eyes at the thought of his missing student being held captive. That's nice. Playing the concerned card? Well, it won't work. Now tell me what the fuck have you bastards have done with my family or else. Naruto spat with malice, done with fucking around when the family he's always wanted needs him. Seeing this reaction and how real Naruto's ire was, Iruka decided to ask another question and hoped he lived through it. Naruto, name the entire Ichiraku menu? He asked, knowing that only a ramen fanatic like Naruto would know it. Naruto, angered, tripled at the question and had enough. Kurama, fucking get out here and tell me what the hell is going on, he shouted to his partner and friend, but got no reply. It worried him that Kurama was this quiet. He was only this quiet when he slept. Searching inward, Naruto found the familiar chakra that belonged to his fox friend. He relaxed, knowing that his partner was still with him. But something felt off to Naruto. It felt weaker than usual. They must have sealed him so he couldn't help. Well, these amateurs should know better than to use seals on an Uzumaki. After Naruto found out about his mother and clan, he searched for anything related to the Uzumaki clan. It was hard, but he did discover quite a lot about his clan's history. Most of the history and jutsu was lost, but he still proved himself to be talented in Fuinjutsu. He practiced the art, and thanks to the shadow clones, God bless them, it hadn't taken him much time to master. Hey, you damn fox! How could you allow someone to get the drop on you? Naruto shouted as he pulled up his shirt and channeling chakra into his belly. Iruka's ears perked up at the mention of fox. He watched wide-eyed as the fourth seal appeared on Naruto's stomach. He was an expert in barrier jutsus, himself. He could tell it was no fake. What the hell? Naruto exclaimed, seeing an exact replica of his father's 8-trigram seal. It was too exact to be a fake, and Naruto didn't have the knowledge in Fuinjutsu to memorize it when he was younger, so it couldn't be his mind's doing. He could make out the writer's quirk of his father that he saw when he looked through his old seals. Each seal master had their own quirk and style that acts as the equivalent of a fingerprint. Only that it can't be copied, not even by a Sharingan, since the muscle memory plays a big role in it. Every person writes their seals differently, and a seal master can easily identify the maker and quirks of the seal within seconds. But it would be almost impossible for Naruto to recreate a perfect replica of his father's seal, even if his mind added the quirks he knows about. Fuinjutsu is too complicated and one could always tell the fake from the real thing if one knew what to look for. Naruto shook his thoughts and focused his mind inward to enter his mindscape. It was harder than before with the new seal on him, but he still managed to do it. He entered the sewer, with water in it, and seen the cage the Kyuubi had been trapped in for most of his life. The word for seal stood on the bars, unblemished, showing it was still in peak condition. "Kid, what the hell is going on? Why the hell am I behind this repugnant cage again?" boomed Kurama's voice, angry at being trapped after years of freedom, thanks to his container. Naruto's heart went out to the beast, knowing how hard it was being locked up again is for his friend. "I don't know, Kurama. I just woke in my old apartment building with a young Iruka yelling at me. I'm in my 12-year-old body, I don't know what the hell's going. Or what the fuck happened to Hinaheim, Boruto, and Himawari?" Naruto shouted, anguish in his voice to his friend, and noticed his voice sounded normal. Looking down, he saw that he appeared in his adult form with his Hokage robes. This confirmed that he was in his mindscape since he appears how he sees himself at the time he entered. Kurama looked at his container, and even though he'd have trouble admitting it, his friend and he could feel the pain and worry he feels for his family and mate. A feeling he shares seeing the kid's family as his own family after living with them for so long and having watched the little kids grow up. "Naruto, it will be alright. We'll rescue our family and tear the bloody bastard that put us in this mess apart, ourselves." The dreaded Kyuubi tried to reassure his container as best he can, in his own violent. Naruto, knowing the Kyuubi so well, it worked, and he calmed down. "Thanks Kurama, I needed that." Naruto thanked his long-term partner and friend. "Don't go soft on me, now kid. We got work to do and figure out what the bloody hell is happening." Kurama teased. The boy he's come to see as his own, and grinned when he got the response he wanted. Naruto slammed his fist into his palm, feeling his usual energy come back. "Right, let's do this and figure out what's happening," Naruto shouted with determination. "Perhaps I could be of some assistance in that endeavor," came an old, but powerful voice, surprising the two occupants that should have been the only ones allowed to enter this plane. Naruto and Kurama, turning towards the new voice, were shocked at who they saw. "Super Gramps, old man," shouted a shocked Naruto and Kurama respectively. "What the hell are you doing here?" they asked in sync. "Long time no see Naruto-kun. Kurama-kun, I've been watching for a long time now, observing you, and am quite satisfied with what the shinobi world had become thanks to you," greeted the ancient sage. Both Naruto and the fox nodded dumbly at the sudden appearance and casual greeting of what could be arguably one of the strongest beings in existences, and how he greeted them like they were having afternoon tea. The almost omnipotent sage went on to answer the duo's question as if it was ordinary to show and talk to them out of the blue. "Now I am here to inform you of what's going on and where you are, my children." The sage answered fatherly, since he was speaking to his son's reincarnation and one of the children he created. "Wait, you know what's going on?" Naruto asked, excited beyond belief that he was finally going to get some answers to his mystifying ordeal. "Yes Naruto-kun, it is quite simple in fact. You see, you and Kurama-kun have traveled back in time about roughly 20 years into the past." The sage told them without a care in the world, like he didn't just tell them they did something the space-time continuum shouldn't really allow. "We WHAAAT!" screamed the two time travelers before they both fainted and Naruto hit the floor on his back and Kurama followed, his legs hanging in the air. The sage looked at his two children like figures in confusion before asked to no one in particular, "Was it something I said?" After a few minutes in the mindscape, which only to amounted almost 0 seconds in reality, Naruto and the fox woke as they both jumped to their feet in sync and shouted at the god of all shinobi. "What the hell do you mean we traveled back in time?" The sage looked at them as he sipped green tea while levitating in the lotus position, and both the Jinchuriki and tailed beast had to fight to stay conscious at the casualness the ancient sage was treating the situation, as both of their eyes twitched. "Ah, finally awake, good, and it's exactly as I said, we are all now 20 years in the past." Both Kurama and Naruto faced palmed and cried anime tears at the sage's casual approach and answer. They both discovered the source of the legendary Uzumaki unfounded and clueless behavior. "I mean, how did this happen? Time travel shouldn't be possible, should it?" Naruto asked, having adjusted to the crazy situation. "Well, that is where you are wrong. Nothing is really impossible with the right power and knowledge. Even time travel, I myself actually use it to travel to the future quite a lot to see the results of people's actions. Naruto and Kurama were left dumbstruck at this revelation. All their prior knowledge of the universe meant nothing. As for how you traveled back, that is because of you, Naruto-kun. The sage finally revealed, pointing an aged finger at the man. Me, what the hell did I do? Naruto shouted as the sage told him. He was the one who caused the situation they were in. You, Naruto-kun, have had half of my power and chakra, along with the chakra of all of my children, the tailed beasts. I believe you subconsciously tapped into that power and brought yourself and Kurama to this time period. The sage told them the answer to all the questions. Naruto remembered thinking if he could do it all over the night before, but he never really wanted it to happen, to be away from his family. Shaken by the revelation, Naruto asked in a shaky voice, "How can we go back?" The sage looked on sadly to the man in front of him before he told them, "You can't go back, Naruto-kun." He answered in a sad voice, showing some true emotion for the first. "What do you mean we can't go back?" Naruto screamed. "It's exactly what I said, you can't go back, it's impossible to reverse what you've done." The sage sorrowfully told them, earning a shocked and outrageous look from the two. "But you said that time travel to the future is possible, why can't we go back?" Naruto questioned the almost omniscient being's logic. "Yes, travel to the future is possible." Naruto smiled as the sage said this, "However, sending you back to where we came from cannot be done." The sage finished, much to the dejected Naruto. "See, can't be done, why not?" Naruto asked weakly, a look of loss and despair appearing in his eyes for the first time in years. "Simple, Naruto-kun, for you. See, the future we came from no longer exists." Naruto dropped to his knees and his mindscape cracked a bit. "What?" he whispered weakly, but on the inside, he didn't want to hear it. Time travel is complicated. While possible, it changes the universe drastically. The Rinnegan wielder started his lecture, and with a wave of his staff a blue river of light appeared in front of him. "For you see, time is like a river, ever moving forward, never stopping. This is how events are supposed to play out, only happening once." The sage told them. "But when something goes against the current and the river flows in reverse, it destroys the river." The sage demonstrated, and Naruto felt his heart break as an orange dot appeared in the river and went backwards against the current, and the river of blue light disintegrated as it did. When the river is destroyed, it begins to form a new river, but this new river is different from the old one and will never be completely the same. "I can send you back into the future, however it won't be the future you came from." The sage finished as a new river of blue light formed. "But why? If that's the case, shouldn't a time paradox have happened? I shouldn't exist now if the future I came from is gone." Naruto shouted in desperation, hoping what the sage said was a lie, that he can still go back. "True, but you see, because you are the one that traveled back in time, you became similar to me, a being that exists outside of time." The orange dot flew outside the river of light before the sage continued. "Because of that, the laws of time don't apply to you, and you exist even though the future you come from doesn't." Naruto fell into despair as the hopelessness of the situation filled him. "So I can't go back to my time?" Naruto asked to confirm. "Yes, that is circumstance you're in. I could send you 20 years in the future, but since the laws of time don't apply to you, you will be sent. But it will be like you just disappeared from this point onward and then reappeared in future you arrive in. Entire events will take place as if you never existed." The sage finished his explanation of time. "So I can't go back. Hinata Heim, Boruto, Himawari, they're gone, and it's all my fault." At the revelation, Naruto fell into despair, his eyes hollow and empty, all fire that they held gone, extinguished as the truth of the situation hit him, and his mindscape cracked even more. The family he loved, the dream he spent his entire life building, gone, and all because of him. He destroyed it all because he was selfish, because he was greedy and wanted more than he already had. He ruined and destroyed hundreds of lives. He'll never wake up with his Heim in his arms. He'll never see his children smile again because they don't exist anyone, they're gone forever because of him. So many lives were unborn, Boruto, Himawari, Sarada, Mirai, they don't exist. All the good he's done or the sacrifices made, all pointless. He and Hinata aren't married, there's no shinobi alliance. All his friends' lives and happy futures were destroying, all because of him. All was ruined, he lost everything because of him, it was all his fault, there was no way around it. Ah. Naruto screamed in anguish and his mindscape was torn asunder as his scream of utter agony and despair echoed through his mind, collapsing it, much to the sage's and Fox's shock. "Naruto, Naruto-kun!" shouted the two supernatural beings as they watched horrified as Naruto's mindscape reformed to reflect his state of mind. They watched powerless to stop the transformation as the once clear water and walls of the sphere became a void of darkness and despair. Radiating nothing but guilt, sorrow, anguish, torment, grief, every negative emotion known to man was carved into his very soul. Now Naruto's mindscape was nothing but an empty void. All that stood in it was the cage Kurama was in, and that was only because he was focusing on keeping some ground under him. The rebuilt fourth seal had cracks in it as big as his ever seen. The bars of his prison were fractured and rusted, like it would break completely if the fox so much as breathed. The paper for seal that served as the lock and centerpiece of the prison was almost completely gone, and all that remained that was keeping the seal together was a single piece of paper about only 1/10 of its original size, and it looked like that would go any second. The other occupant, the sage, hovered within the void, his ripple eyes gazing sadly at the boy in front of him. In the center of the mindscape hovered Naruto Uzumaki, in a little boy's body of roughly 5 years old. He was no longer the invincible man that made the impossible possible. He wasn't the person that was known for his guts to never give up and prevail no matter the odds against him. No, standing in front of him was no longer the boy that fought fate and destiny. Naruto Uzumaki was a shell of his former self, his eyes ringed hollow, filled with only the hopelessness and despair. His once bright and spiky hair now hung lifeless and dulled, and his 5-year-old body looked weak, suffering from malnutrition. He was nothing but skin and bones, as his lifeless pale white skin was the only thing that could really be made out in the darkness. The will of fire had gone out and Naruto Uzumaki faced defeat. Both the two supernatural beings looked over their charge in grief, not expecting that the boy they knew so well as the brightness and most determined person could be drained of all life and reduced to this pitiful state. Both of them felt their stomach turn. A look of disgust overcame them as the concentrated emotions around them suffocated the two, making them both feel and look weaker, their sensitive senses being overloaded by the sheer anguish that Naruto was going through. "Old man, what the hell have you fucking done?" roared the enraged fox, feeling anger at its creator and father figure for what he did to its kid. Hagoromo looked at the empty shell of Uzumaki with regret and flinched at the anger one of his children was giving him, having not felt it since Indra strayed from the right path. "I'm sorry, Kurama-kun, I didn't mean to cause this to happen," the sage told him in sorrow. He only wanted to help the young boy out and explain the situation he was in. "You didn't mean to. You basically told him he ended the world, destroying everything he cares about, and you just say you didn't mean to." Kurama bellowed in outrage, feeling something he never thought he'll feel for its father, pure hate. "You should know how sensitive the kid is after the life he's lived through, that hell, and being told that he lost everything he loves and took his entire life to get is gone now because of him. And you didn't mean to cause this." The fox raged and made the sage grimace, feeling guilty knowing everything the fox told him was true. When it put it like that, he knew the life Naruto went through was hard, and it was a miracle he became who he was before. But because of that, he misguidedly thought that nothing could bring him down and extinguish the fires of determination that always burned in his soul. But he forgot one simple fact: Naruto was only human, and even he has a breaking point. That breaking point was losing the dream he never thought he'd have, the family and love he always wished for, and all because of him. The sage's shoulders sagged in regret, shame and guilt as he apologized to his two boys. "I'm sorry, Naruto-kun and Kurama-kun, I truly am. Even near omniscient and omnipotent can make mistakes if they're not careful. Sorry isn't going to cut it. We need to get the kid back to his old self." The Kyuubi told his maker, and the sage agreed. "You're right, there is one thing I should mention then." With a wave of his staff, the blue river from before appeared, but it only had a dull light to it now because of the atmosphere draining his powers. Even though it is impossible to create the exact same future as before, some things will still happen and not change as long as you or anyone else interferes with it. For you see, like all rivers, when a new one is formed, it flows and forms on the remains of the previous one. A faint canal appeared under the river of light. It curved and turned, and the blue river poured into it and flowed down the channel. You see, this is what is known as fate. As long as specified conditions are met, then so will events from the preceding timeline be recreated. Even if the timeline has changed, it will continue to run the course that is the most easiest to run and already set. Only beings like ourselves can change the outcome. The sage lectured again about the theory and logic behind time. If you started with this, maybe you would have been able to keep the kid together long enough for him to fix his mistake. Kurama growled as it gestured to Naruto, who, much to both beings' dismay, hardly reacted. The sage continued his speech in hopes of getting a reaction from the broken boy. Anyway, even though your children aren't born yet, regardless of when or where, as long as Hinata-chan gets pregnant again by you, she is granted to give birth to Boruto-kun and Himawari-chan, so you will see them again, you just need to make it happen. The sage finished and managed to get the boy to at least look at him with his lifeless eyes. Kurama, seeing this was working, but not as well as he hoped, added in his own 2 cents, in other words, you can fix all your mistakes and make a better life for your family as long as you get back together with your vixen. Kurama told its kid, and Naruto reacted and spoke back for the first time. But even if I did get back with Hinaheim, what's to say it won't happen again, that I won't destroy my future and life again, ruining everything we made and had together? Naruto argued weakly. No worries there, Naruto-kun, now that you are aware of your powers, you will only travel in time if you physically will it to happen. You will never do it by your subconscious again. The sage spoke up, but Naruto snapped at him. Even so, I don't deserve Hinata-heim anymore. She was happy we all were and I ruined it. I'm a monster that took away everyone's life and future. I don't deserve to be loved, I don't deserve to be happy. Naruto snapped. The revelation that he caused, it seemed to bring back all the fears he had of becoming the monster the villagers saw him as when he was younger, and in the end they were right. He ruined everything and destroyed everything. Kurama looked at Naruto sadly, feeling pity that the only human it really ever came to respect as an equal, the one who pulled itself from the darkness, gave it a life of happiness and a future worth living for. The one that saved it and all of his brethren from the path of darkness and destruction they were heading for. The one who freed them from their hate, was falling into the same darkness and self-destructive path. Kurama would not let it happen. This time it was its turn to save its family and the closest thing to a son he had. So that's it, you are just going to give and let everyone down, you're going to abandon your friends and family, you precious mate. Kurama growled as taunted its container. I never said that, I just don't deserve to be happy after what I've done, I failed, I always fail. Naruto responded downcast. Well, it sure bloody sounds like it, or have you forgotten that it was you who saved your mate from her suffering, that it was you who became the hero of the world and saved everyone, ending all wars as we know it and brought in a golden age? Kurama voiced boomed throughout void, and Naruto shouted back. Some hero I ended up destroying the world as we know it and caused everyone we know to lose their happiness. Naruto responded with red eyes and tears. The weight of what he done too much to bear alone. Well, good thing he won't have to carry it alone, because he's never alone and never will be. Then fix it, or are you just going to let everyone suffer, because you're having a pity party? Who will stop that Uchiha from going down the path of vengeance? Who will stop Madara and Kagaya? Who will save Obito? Did you forget all the good you did? Did you forget that it was you who saved your mate from her suffering and gave her a life worth living? Kurama spat and Naruto shook in denial as he whispered, I'm sure Hinata-heim would find someone else and live a much happier life. He told himself half-heartedly, hating every word he spoke like it was poison, but his Heim deserved better than him. As if reading his thought, the fox had a sarcastic grin as it gave a response. That's assuming if she didn't kill herself to escape her torment. At those words, memories of when he and his Heim first got together flowed through his mind. Naruto-kun, if it wasn't for I would have probably gave up on living long ago, and don't give me that look, I know it's true. You've always been the son that guided me. You were the one who showed me how to be a proud failure. His Heim smiled at him. If it wasn't for you, I would have took my own life to escape, believing that I was a failure that didn't deserve to live and deserved death. Hoping it would make all those that I failed happy. When I fought Neji Nisan in pain, I didn't expect to live, and a small part of me wanted to die, to be free of my pain no matter the cost. But you saved me, Naruto-kun. Your smile gave me hope. Your will to never give up allowed me to walk down the right. It was your Nindo that allowed me to have the life I'm living now. It was all you. The happiness I have now, the wonderful life I live, was all thanks to you. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Hinata cried before she finished. Thank you for loving me, Thank you for making me fall in love with you, because it was thanks to my love for you that I am who I am today. I love you Naruto-kun and I always will and no one else can ever change that. Naruto memories finished and told the fox he was wrong in denial. You're wrong, Hinataheim can live without me, she's strong. But will she be happy? She could end marrying that mutt because she doesn't have you and sees no reason to care about the life she lives. She could end up being married off to some bastard, who doesn't care and will only rape her over and over again. Kurama told him, just what could happen to his mate, just how bad she could have it without him. Naruto finally reacted for the first time, in pure anger at the thought of his Heim with anyone else. The thought of her being abused by some filthy lowlife. I will never let my Heim be hurt like that. I'll kill anyone who so much as looks at her wrong. Naruto roared. But that's exactly what will happen without you there. And what about the little kids Boruto and Hima-chan? Are you alright for them to lose their chance of life? To be erased from exists because their father can't bring himself to care and fight for them, to get them back. Kurama snapped. No, I don't want that. I would never give up on them. Naruto snapped back. Well, that is exactly what you're doing. What happened to the Naruto that never gave up? The one that always fought till the end? The Naruto that your mate loved, the one your kids loved and were proud to call their father. You moan and moan, but where did Naruto the proud failure go? The one that didn't live for himself, but for his loved ones and would have sacrificed everything for them. Naruto looked at the fox, some of his past light and determination returning as the fire in his sapphire orbs was lit anew. He stared at his closest friend and family, the one who's always been with him in his own way and watched over and protected him. The pathetic human in front of me is not the one I came to call my friend and family. The Naruto I know lives for others, not himself. Now are you going to keep on whining or are you going to do something and get your family back? If you won't live for yourself, then live for them, your mate, your children, for Hinaheim, Boruto and Himaheim, fight and live for them, like you always have. The fox spoke with passion and purpose as he grinned at seeing the light of hope shine in his container's azure eyes. Ha ha ha. Naruto laughed and he stood up. You're right. You're right. I just can't give up. I need to fight for them, for my family. Naruto grinned. He was still a long way from being the man he would become, but his blonde hair went back to its normal color and wild state. His skin took its natural tan hue. His cobalt orbs burned with the will of fire once more. To Kurama, this was the image of the boy it watched over as he grew up from a baby to the man that he would become. The one that succeeded where all others failed. The proud failure that always stands tall no matter the odds. The boy that it saw as a son and was proud to do so. One worthy of being Hokage and successor to its old man's will. He was Naruto Uzumaki, he who shall always move forward and down his path without regrets. Naruto still had a long way to go before he was who he used to be, but now he was finally starting to look like the man he was going to be someday, the man that changed the world. Both boy and fox stretched out their fists and bumped them together, a sign of their friendship, respect and partnership as equals. As long as the two live, they will always be by the other's side. The sage of six paths couldn't help the tears that fall from his eyes from seeing the bond the two shared. For a time, he given up on the humans that persecuted the children he had created, but looking at what the two shared, he knew that he made the right choice. Humans may make mistakes, but the bonds they share know no limits and give them strength far beyond what they could ever achieve alone. Naruto-kun, I'm sorry for the distress my words caused. I was only trying to help you. The sage spoke up, but Naruto waved the old man off. Don't, I needed it to hear it anyway. It would have happened either and it's better than being blind. Thanks Super Gramps. Naruto saluted. His mindscape was still a wreck, but it too will heal in time. Look on the bright side, kid. Now you can fix all the mistakes you made the first time around, like noticing your vixen sooner and delaying being Hokage so you get more family time. Kurama piped in, happy to have the old Naruto back. Yeah, you're right, just you wait, Hinaheim. I am going to make sure you and our future children are the happiest family in the world. Naruto shouted to the sky, his fist in the air. The sage faded from the mindscape at peace, knowing the young boy will be fine in the end, especially with the help of all those who support him. Naruto woke up back in the real world. Almost no time was lost looking at the bewildered Iruka. He retracted his claws, looking embarrassedly at his old sensei. He clumsily rubbed the back of his head. Sorry about that, Iruka sensei, a lot sort of happened. Please forgive me. I'll treat you to ramen. Naruto pleaded as he put his hands in front and begged for forgiveness. Iruka looked confused at the sudden change in the person that he doesn't know whether to call his student or not. He decided to ask one thing before he did anything else: name the entire Ichiraku menu. Iruka asked. 10 minutes later Naruto finished reciting the menu of, in his words, the greatest ramen stand on earth from heart, and gave detailed reviews of each dish of the so-called food of the gods, which only Naruto Uzumaki could do. Iruka still had his doubts, but if there was one thing and only one thing he could trust from Naruto, it was ramen. Naruto, what the hell is going on? Iruka shouted. He came to pick his student up, who was late once again for the academy, only to get slammed in the nuts and into a wall, be threatened to get neutered, and find out his favorite student knows about the fox. Well, it's complicated. Naruto dodged, not knowing where to start and whether his old sensei will believe him. How complicated? Iruka asked. Complicated enough that I may have to give up ramen if you don't believe me. Naruto flat-toned at the depressing thought of losing his favorite food, but if he had to sacrifice it for his family, then so be it. Iruka gave a look of shock. Knowing anything serious enough to make Naruto willingly give up ramen was way over their heads and would require a god to make sense of. Hopefully someone called the god of shinobi and professor will do. Okay, let's take it to the Hokage and hope the world doesn't end when you're forced to give up ramen for whatever craziness you got yourself into this time. Iruka saw Naruto flinch and his eyes almost went hollow as he said those words, and he knew that there was something much more serious than just losing ramen at stake for his student. Okay, let's Naruto tripped and landed on his face. Iruka's sweat dropped that the boy that just a few minutes ago was literally the scariest thing he's ever seen could barely even walk now. Can I get some help please? I'm not exactly 100% now. Naruto asked, and Iruka lifted the boy up and left for the Hokage tower still in his pajamas. As Iruka jumped across the rooftops of the village with Naruto on his back, he caught sight of many Anbuin ninja panicking about, most likely because of the massive chakra wave his charge released earlier. When they made it to the tower, it was chaos. Iruka rushed right to the Hokage's office, ignoring protests, and just barged into the room. He paused as he saw the elders of Konoha Council giving him the glare. To the grudgingly elders, respect. Iruka didn't back down, but before he could say anything a blue blur shot past them and into the Hokage. Turning at whatever they saw move at such speeds, they were surprised to see the Kyuubi child hugging the third Hokage like a lifeline. Jisan. Naruto sodded into the old man's Hokage robes. Hiruzen was baffled. Despite being so close to the young Jinchuriki and having him call him grandfather, he never once seen the young boy cry so openly. The elders glared at the boy, and Hiruzen tried to calm the crying boy down as he dismissed the elders. That is all for now. I have some other matters to attend to. But Hokage-sama, the massive amounts of chakra we sensed early can't be ignored. As a matter of fact, that thing. Kaharu Utatane started, but stopped as killer intent skyrocketed. Say another word and you will be reminded that not even you are exempt from the law. The third Hokage threatened. All the elders bowed and left the room, glaring at Iruka as they passed him, and then slammed the door to the office closed. Now Naruto-kun, what's wrong and what happened? The third asked the crying boy in his lap with a grandfatherly voice. Sorry Jisan, I'm just really happy to see you, it's been way too long. Naruto smiled as he wiped his tears. Ho ho, it's only been a day since we last ate ramen together my boy. The third laughed. For you maybe, but it's been a lot longer for me. I'll explain everything, but first get rid of the 6 Anbu in the room. I need to speak with you in private. Naruto told the third, much to his surprise. He wasn't very surprised that Naruto noticed the Anbu. They've been watching him his entire life and he's had to run away from them enough times to know where they are. I swear how this boy can't pass the academy graduation test is beyond me. He's picked up the skills of most veteran Anbu members, when it comes to infiltration, escaping, trap making and sensing. All without official training. If I gave him the Jonin or even the Anbu test, he could probably pass with flying colors just with those skills alone. The third contemplated, knowing if it wasn't the damn council, Naruto could probably be the village's leading assassination and infiltration expert by now. Well, it's not a completely bad thing. Kushina would have my head in the next life if she found out I made Naruto a murder without giving him a proper chance at a childhood first. The Hokage shivered. Memories of the red-hot habanero still give him the willies to this day. But enough musing, he needs to get to the matter at hand. There are only 5 Anbu in the room, Naruto-kun. The old man told, only to be proven wrong by a boy not even a quarter his age. No, there's a 6th one hiding in the shadow in the corner over there. Naruto pointed to the upper left corner and a kunai shot out of the shadow. Within seconds the 5 other Anbu took down the interloper and the third caught the kunai without effort and was surprised when Naruto didn't even flinch when the kunai was inches from his face and was aimed at him. Looking carefully at the blue orbs that used to always shine with innocence and hope, but now were darkened with a look of a man who's seen just what the shinobi world is and had witnessed firsthand the horrors it can produce. He knew this wasn't the boy he knew. The third looked at the extra Anbu and immediately knew who he belonged to, Root. He growled before he barked his orders, take him to interrogation and make sure they bleed him dry of every last thing he knows. With that order the Anbu left the room. Iruka was surprised by what just happened before the third commented, "Okay Naruto-kun, what is it you want?" And his question was cut off as Naruto made a hand sign and chakra entered the air and a privacy seal was set over the room. Both Iruka and Hiruzen were impressed at the quick application of such an advanced seal, with only one sign. Naruto-kun, what? The third was cut off again as a high-pitched whistle sounded throughout the room, temporarily hurting both the two men's ears. As chakra in the air vibrated, there was a small pop and smoke could be seen and smelled from several areas in the offices. Iruka and the third looked at Naruto questioningly. Sorry, listening devices and seals. The jutsu I used just now destroyed them using sound waves generated by vibrating chakra. It will also cause the person listening to go deaf in the ear they were listening with for a few days, so you can identify who was spying. Naruto explained much to the dumbstruck pair and then he added, I'll teach it you, it's a useful jutsu and great security measure for a cage. Okay. Who are you and what have you done with Naruto-kun? The third asked, giving the boy in front of him cold threatening eyes and killer intent. Much to his respect and surprise the person in front of him didn't even flinch, something that not even most veterans can achieve. Well, I am Naruto, the blonde boy said with a foxy grin and teasing voice, and right when the two men were to lose their temper, he finished, I'm just from 20 years in the future. Nanadem Hokage Naruto Uzumaki at your service. The prankster jumped on the desk and bowed. Both the academy sensei and Hokage stared dumbfounded at the boy in pajamas as he bowed. He just told them he was the future Hokage and Naruto Uzumaki from 20 years in the future, and with a straight face. The third was the first to recover. You honestly expect me to believe you're from the future? The third questioned the sanity of the person in front of him. Naruto just nodded and responded with a straight face, no, not at all. As a future Hokage I know you can't just accept everything at face value, but I am more than willing to reveal information that only you, a Hokage or a person from the future can know, but they are all SS class secrets. Naruto told the man as he gestured to Iruka with his head. The third knew what he meant and that he wouldn't reveal what he knew unless it was okay for Iruka to know. Okay, you may speak. The third said as he pulled out his pipe and lit it. After all, what can a crazy person possibly know? He thought as he took a puff of his pipe, blowing out some smoke. Alright then, I guess I should start off. I am Naruto Uzumaki, son of Kushina and Minato Namikaze. I was named after the character of my godfather Jiraiya's first and only good book, The Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi Naruto. Naruto was enjoying the dazed expressions they made as their jaws dropped. He was still a prankster at heart after all. I am the third Jinchuriki of Kyuubi no Yoko Kurama, who I inherited from my mother, who was the second Jinchuriki, who inherited the duty from her predecessor and first Jinchuriki, the wife of the Shodai Hokage Mito Uzumaki Senju. Iruka seemed taken back at the information of there having been Jinchuriki before. Looking confused that Naruto was also related to the two, which was going to be explained next. The reason only Uzumaki are chosen as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki is because the special chakra and vitality our bloodline gives us lets us suppress his chakra and survive having him sealed inside of us, where anyone else would die. Naruto explained, and he grinned at the stunned looks the two adults were giving him. Finishing with a proud smirk, this reminded him of the time when the few council members who refused to accept him after he literally saved the world found out who his parents were. The third wanted to believe what he just said and that he was Naruto from the future, but sadly anyone could figure out Naruto's identity and where his name came from if they asked the right people and questions, especially if they had a traitor in their midst. That's not enough, I'm afraid. The third started before Naruto cut him off, because anyone could find that out with enough research and if they asked the right people. Naruto predicated exactly what he just thought and was going to say. I started off with that because it would get you to open up to me and listen more, as well as reveal that I know who my parents are. Naruto told him in a cheerful tone. Iruka was in shell shock by what was just revealed to him, and the third didn't deny that Naruto was the fourth son and just sat back and listened. Though I would like to ask a question, when were you going to tell me who they were? Naruto glared at the third. He only found out who they were when he literally met his father and mother. The third shouldn't have answered and played the boys' game, but he already knew so much so it wouldn't hurt. I planned to tell him when he made Chunin and could handle the truth, the same with the fox. The third said. And did it ever occur to you that me or you might die, or that I won't even become a ninja since the council were sabotaging me and removed the ARC course, abnormal reserves of chakra course, from the academy curriculum? Naruto told him, anger lacing his voice. Causing students like me who have too much chakra to fail, because we are unable to perform low-level E-rank jutsu that are designed for students with low chakra reserves so they can expend both their reserves and chakra control. Naruto snapped. When he became Hokage, he found out they conveniently discontinued the practice right when he joined the academy. Chakra control and reserves ratio theory is one of the first things we are taught. The amount of control a person has over their chakra is directly affected by their reserves, because it's easier to control smaller amounts of chakra when you have low chakra to begin with. The academy jutsu and curriculum were designed to teach students with the minimal and average chakra reserves, while steadily building their reserves and control up so they can perform the more advanced jutsu. Naruto pointed an accusing finger, finally releasing some of the anger he held for the third not doing his job properly when he was in office and how much it affected him as he grew up. The ARC course was put in place by the Shodai Hokage for students who have too much chakra to perform the low-level jutsu and control exercises, and are required to be taught high-level control exercises like tree climbing and water walking, before they can be taught at the same level as those with normal reserves. All students were supposed to have their chakra measured when they first enter the academy to see if they qualified for the course. Naruto shouted in outrage and was out breath, breathing heavily from doing so, but he was far from finished venting. Those bastards also took away the right to substitute the clone jutsu with any of its varieties with the excuse that it requires fine-tuned chakra control to do a normal clone, when it's impossible for me to separate and control that tiny drop of chakra when I have a planet-sized amount. I mean, I would have never been able to pass the exam the normal way. The worst part of all was that the academy teachers willingly let me take the exam when I wasn't ready so that I would fail and be kicked from the program for failing it 3 times the maximum number of times someone is allowed to take the stupid test. Naruto spat with venom. It wasn't until after he became Hokage and looked into changing the academy curriculum with his Hime's help that he found so many things that were wrong with the system. Hinata explained and helped him overhaul the whole thing so the mistakes of the past won't repeat. Naruto was breathing heavily now as he finished. He didn't realize he had so much anger and hate left inside after he found that out. It wasn't only him, but thousands of academy students were forced to be dropped from the program because of it, when they could have become some Konoha's best shinobi. Seeing the man who was partially responsible for it, even if he loved the man to bits as his grandfather, all those emotions and hate he never got a chance to direct to anyone were all released like a dam. Naruto was sweating and breathing heavily from his tantrum, and the third and Iruka were shocked at what he just said. It all makes sense now. Damn council, when I get my hands on them, they will. The third growled, and he promised to look through every single person and speak with all the people who are having trouble, or were dropped from the program personally. Iruka was having a much different reaction. What the fuck were you doing? Iruka shouted at the third, his shock from the previous conversation gone and rage taking its place. Naruto and Hiruzen were taken back by the usual subdued academy teacher's use of language. You're the bloody Hokage and you let the academy and council do this. Iruka was outraged by what was done. Naruto was his favorite student and he always wanted to help him, but was forbidden from doing as much as he wanted due to not being allowed to show favoritism. But most of all, he hated himself. Listening to everything Naruto said, he felt so ashamed. He knew the theory better than anyone and taught Naruto for years, yet never saw the obvious reason to why he was having trouble. Iruka fell to the floor in tears and apologized to Naruto. I'm sorry, Naruto. I should have seen it. I taught the subjects you spoke about, and yet I never put two and two together of why you had so much trouble. I should have helped more. You were held back because I was a bad teacher, because the academy held you back. I'm so sorry. Iruka cried and Naruto felt his heart warm at the words. Iruka did the same thing in his timeline and was a big supporter in the changing of the academy system and became the principal after having become a Jonin and learned Shadow Clone so he could give time to every student that needed it. Naruto let a few tears slip before he gave the same reply he gave his first sensei and his future. Iruka-sensei, you don't need to apologize, you were the only teacher that cared about me and helped me out in the first place. You have nothing to apologize for, and it was thanks to you I managed to become a ninja and eventually Hokage in the first place. All these years you've been like the father I've never had. You taught me not just how to be a ninja, but a better person and a man. I could never thank you enough for all you've done, and I will always be grateful to you, to me. You will always be my sensei who's always given it his all for his students. I know without a doubt that you will help me change the academy and be the best sensei there is, like I already know you to be. Naruto said with the wisdom of a Hokage, and both sensei and student looked in each other's eyes, and if it wasn't for the third's interruption they would have had a Guy and Lee moment. Sorry to interrupt the moment, and you have my thanks for bringing everything you said to my attention, but please understand I can't just take your word for it and believe you're from the future. Hiruzen begrudgingly told the two. True, he wanted to believe in them and give this Naruto his trust and cooperation. It was if he was seeing the Hokage that the boy he saw as a grandson would become. He wished it was truly Naruto, knowing that both Minato and Kushina would be proud of him, but he has the village to protect, and as Hokage he needs to make the hard choices. He made too many mistakes, relying on Danzo to get his hands dirty instead of him too much. He needs to start making the decisions a Hokage should. Regardless what the outcome of the meeting is and whether the boy in front of him was who he said he is or not, as long Naruto was safe, he would make sure the person in front of him was safe, because he made Hiruzen Sarutobi, the professor and god shinobi, realize that he still had a lot to learn before he could be the Hokage Konohagakure no Sato needed him to be. He looked at the boy in front of him with the respect that he has only given to a few people who did their best for the village. Itachi and Shisui Uchiha were on that list. Author's note. This chapter I wanted to show that Naruto was held back. It seemed to me that when his senseis trained him properly and carefully explained things to him, he was a good student, always completing tasks in record time with or without shadow clones. So I decided to place blame on the teaching methods and his sensei who sabotaged him during the academy. I also showed a bit of Hokage Naruto and that he's become much more responsible and takes his job seriously. This wasn't supposed to be a talk between a boy and old man, but a talk between two Kage who develop mutual respect for one another by doing so. Also, the jutsu Naruto used is actual very simple, it just releases chakra plus like you would to release genjutsu. But the chakra vibrates slightly, making a high-pitched sound that affects listening devices. The ARC course, Abnormal Reserves of Chakra course, is something I came up with, since Naruto's control has always been terrible, and in other fics I seen that most people think it was because of his chakra reserves, and I agree with that opinion. So I created the chakra control and reserves ratio theory, which explains how and why the amount of chakra one has affects their control. I plan to explain how chakra is measured to at some point. Any questions, please PM me. Details for both are shown below. ARC course, Abnormal Reserves of Chakra course, is a course instated by the first Hokage, for students who have chakra reserves beyond that of the minimal and average amount of the majority students taught at the academy. This was done mostly for students born from civilian families. Students that come from shinobi clans are known to have larger reserves than those that don't. They however received help and special training designed to work with their reserves, that their clans has developed over the years. However, every so often a civilian can be born with an abnormal level of chakra and is unable to perform the training the academy curriculum provides to the best of their ability. The first Hokage and his brother, who would later become the second Hokage with their sensory abilities, noticed, during the first batch of graduates from the academy's first year, a lot of students with high chakra reserves failed. Seeing this, the first and second Hokages gave these students a modified version of their clan's training, which was designed to work with the senju's higher than normal chakra reserves. After a few months of the training, all the students that failed passed, when they were deemed unfit to be ninja by normal academy standards. In order to avoid holding back potential ninja due to lack of proper training, the first two Hokages constructed the ARC course for students that have above a certain amount of chakra. And then teach them chakra control exercises that they can work and let them increase their control to the same level of those with low chakra reserves. Both the first and second Hokage added a law to the village charter. Paragraph 10, Section B, Shinobi Training Laws and Regulations. All students by law are required to have their chakra measured upon entering of the academy, and if their chakra levels qualify them, they shall receive training in the abnormal reserves of chakra course. This right is to be provided to all citizens of Konohagakure by village law, and this decree can't be overruled or removed without the consent of all members of the council, Hokage and Fire Daimyo. Signed by the first Hokage Hashirama Senju, the Fire Daimyo of the Land of Fire and Council Konohagakure. Chakra control and reserves ratio theory is one of the first and most basic things taught at the academy. The theory states that the amount of control a person has over their chakra has a direct correlation to the level of their chakra reserves. This is because chakra control requires one to manipulate a precise amount of chakra depending on what they are trying to achieve. The amount of chakra used can have a variety of effects on the task one performs. An example of this is tree climbing. Too much chakra will cause one to destroy the tree they are on and send the user flying. Too little, however, and one is unable to grip the tree with their chakra and fall off. It is easier for one to measure and learn the right amount of chakra to use when someone's reserves are smaller than they would if they were larger. This is because it is easier to achieve the precise amount of chakra one needs for an exercise when their base chakra levels are closer to the target amount necessary. The academy is designed to work with this by teaching students to control low-level amounts of chakra and build up their reserves and control over time. By doing exercises that require them to control and use more chakra each time. And because of this, it is more effective for people with large chakra to do the opposite and work down from exercises that teach and require them to control large amounts of chakra first before they start learning how to control smaller amounts. Hokage-sama, please believe him, this is way too elaborate to be a prank or some fake. I am willing to stake my life that this is the real Naruto. Iruka pleaded with his leader. The third looks onto his subordinate in sadness. He just couldn't take that risk with the village that he loves and after so many mistakes that he's done in order to keep it safe. It's alright, Iruka-sensei, if Jisan wasn't suspicious, he wouldn't be worthy to carry the hat. A Hokage needs to make hard choices for the village that he loves and keeps those he cherishes safe. Naruto spoke, his voice filled with wisdom beyond his age, as he entered Hokage mode again. The third Hokage wanted nothing more than to hand the hat over to the boy in front of him. He could see the eyes of a cage on him and a will of fire that burned brighter than any he's seen before. There was almost no doubt in his mind that if this person was the real Naruto, then he would be the greatest Hokage there ever is or ever will be. The third gave a nod of respect to Naruto, a sign he wanted the boy to continue. Despite the situation Naruto was in, he was having a blast. One of the things he's always wanted was to earn his grandfather figure's respect and make him proud, but he passed before he got the chance to see the man he became. But now here he is, one of his biggest heroes, looking at him as an equal and with respect. He could tell that the third wants to believe him, and he admired the man even more for holding himself back from doing so. He may not have been the best Hokage, but he was definitely worthy of the job. He held the longest reign among the Hokage and led the village through 3 wars. It wouldn't have been exaggerated to say that the village only survived this long because of him. But there was one weakness the third had: he loved this village and those in it too much. He had difficulty making the harder choices and put too much faith in the wrong people. He never abused his power and was almost afraid to use it at all. He was almost too qualified for the job, loving the village to the point that it could destroy itself, but when he hardened his heart and made the tough decisions, he was one of greatest Kage there was. To Naruto, who met all past Hokages, the third reminded him of a combination of the first and second Hokages. Naive, but also a realist, yet because of that he has trouble following through with his choices and is split between the two paths, wanting the best of both worlds. Naruto wanted nothing more than to fight the third and hope he would get the chance one day. You know, you remind me of both Shodai and Nidaime Hokages, and I'm sure they're both proud of who you become. Naruto smiled at the third and left him, and Iruka confused at the sudden statement. Hiruzen was happy about that. He had no idea how this Naruto knew his two predecessors, but he could tell that he meant his words and felt a burden on his shoulders be lifting at the thought of the two men he respected most approving of him. I thank you with the compliment, but we've gone off track. You still need to make me believe in your story. Hiruzen smiled at the 12-year-old Kage and a look of understanding passed between the two Kage. I know, what I am about to tell you next should do it, since this should only be known to 6 people, including you. Naruto nodded and the third's brow raised at the statement and his jaw dropped at what the boy said next. The Uchiha massacre was orchestrated by Danzo. He ordered well more like blackmailed Itachi to kill the clan, who were planning a coup d'état, in exchange for his brother Sasuke being spared and not finding out the truth. You originally had Shisui and Itachi, working to prevent the coup, and you agreed to let Shisui use his Koto Amatsukami to stop the Uchiha leaders from making their move and calm the clan down. This plan was stopped when Danzo stole Shisui eye for his own use and he was forced to commit suicide and give his remaining eye to Itachi. Danzo then convinced Itachi to take matters in his own hands so he could get more Sharingan for his own use, by killing off all clan members besides Sasuke. Naruto told them, revealing the biggest cover-up in the village's history. A lot of thoughts went through the third's head. He knew Danzo played too much of a big role in the massacre and Shisui's death, but had no proof. Nor did he know about the fact he had one of Shisui's eyes. It explained so much of how he's gained power over the years. The information should only be known to him and his advisors, plus Itachi. That's 5 people, but he said there was 6. Does that mean that there's another, or was he talking about himself? Either way, the only way he could know so much is if he was working with Itachi or Danzo or had a spy network greater than Jiraiya's ever was. Even he doesn't know the truth about Itachi and only sees him as faceless contact. The only of choice was if he was telling the truth, and since he told him that he knew about, he's not someone who wants to harm the village. Hiruzen had no choice but to put his faith in Naruto. From everything he said, the boy in front of him cared about the village and had an emotional investment in most topics he told them. Iruka looked to the third for confirmation on what he just heard. Okay. I believe you, or am at least willing to trust you. I assumed chakra spike earlier was your doing. The third conceded and smiled as he asked the boy about the chaos that was happening today. Iruka was relieved that the Hokage trusted Naruto. Yeah, sorry, at first assumed it was genjutsu or some other jutsu, so I tried to dispel it with a chakra pulse. Naruto said sheepishly as he scratched the back of his head. I see by what you said you probably came back by accident then? The third Hokage questioned, able to tell that Naruto actually didn't come back of his own free will then. Yeah, you see, in my time I was given half of the Sage of 6 Paths chakra and I sort of messed up and got sent back by accident and I can't back to my time. Naruto explained. Both Iruka and the third were taken back at the mention of a mythical person and that Naruto had some of his powers. Both were starting to think this discussion was more trouble than it's worth. Really, so the Sage of 6 Paths gave you half of his powers? Your story just keeps getting more unbelievable. The third sagged. Yeah, well, if I told you everything that happened in my timeline, you would think me more crazy than you already do. Believe me, impossible and unbelievable lost all meaning where I come from. Naruto told them, and after everything that was said, both the two adults really didn't want to know what else happened in the future. I'll take your word for it, so now what? Are you really stranded here and can't return to your own time? The darkening look in Naruto's eyes was all the confirmation he needed. Yes, I can travel through time, but the future I came from was destroyed by doing so, so I can never go back. Naruto dead-panned and both adults caught the sadness in his voice as he did. The third was about to question that logic when, and don't use a time paradox would occur. I said the same thing when Super Gramps, sorry, the Sage of 6 Paths told me. Naruto corrected and both shinobi were left speechless that he referred to the creator of ninjutsu like that. The sage told you? The third asked. Yeah, he said that time is like a river and not supposed to flow backwards, and since I possessed parts of his powers and was the one who traveled back, the laws of time don't apply to me anymore. Naruto told them, and like his nickname the professor, the third had a rough idea what he meant. I see, so what are you planning to do now? The third asked the boy he sees as a grandson. I plan to live my life here and rebuild everything I lost. Naruto responded with determination and fire in his eyes. Very well, I don't suppose you can tell me about the future? The third asked, and Iruka perked up as he did. Who wouldn't be interested in the future? Both were curious what happened to them. Well, Naruto was stopped by the voice in his head. We don't want to change events too much. The less they know the better. Keep what they know limited to events that are about to occur. Kurama spoke up. I can't tell you everything, since it could change what will happen more than it already is, so I will keep what I tell you about, to events that are coming up. Naruto spoke up, before he asked a question himself. Speaking of which, what's the date exactly? I don't know the exact time I traveled to is. Naruto asked. You just failed the graduation test for the second time. Iruka spoke up and had a tinge of resentment in his voice now that he knows about Naruto being set up to fail. I see, so I have 6 months before I become a genin, but if you don't change the rules back I'll fail again for sure. Naruto expressed annoyed that even though he is technically a Kage he could still fail to become genin. How did you pass before then? The third inquired, not understand that he could still pass if he can't make clones. Mizuki was a traitor when I failed. He came up and told me if I steal the forbidden scroll and learn a jutsu I could become a genin. I did and learned shadow clones which were perfect for me. Naruto revealed and Iruka took it hard. What, Mizuki? He wouldn't do that. Iruka tried to argue, but Naruto stopped him. He was planning to steal and give the scroll to Orochimaru. When you showed up, he told me about the Kyuubi and that it was sealed inside me. Naruto spoke up and the third continued. There was evidence in the past showing that Mizuki could have killed his comrades, but we ignored it due to his track record in the end and some pushing from Danzo. Hiruzen spoke up, to Iruka's surprise, having never heard of this before now. In which case I'll try and fix the academy graduation, if not we will let Mizuki's situation play out as before and then I can give you a field promotion and use the excuse that you learning shadow clones proves that Mizuki was sabotaging you. The third Hokage summarized before he ordered Iruka. Iruka, I know that he's your friend, but we can't let this slide. Keep a watch on him, but don't reveal your intentions. The third Hokage ordered. Yes, Hokage-sama. Iruka accepted, but felt bad that his best friend could be an enemy. The third looked at Naruto and then grinned. So the Nanadem? He asked. Yep, it took years and I had to wait until most of the council were dead and buried, but I did it, I became Hokage. Naruto jumped as he proclaimed he achieved his dream. I don't suppose I could convince you to take the hat now, could I? Hiruzen laughed at the face Naruto made at the idea. No way in hell, I escaped the paperwork and have no intentions of being chained down by it again so soon. Naruto practically screamed, causing Iruka and the third to laugh. Ha ha ha, I never thought all the day you would say no to being Hokage. Iruka laughed before the third chimed in. I understand. The blasted paperwork is literally a never-ending hell on earth. Sarutobi glared at said paperwork and Naruto joined in. Any Kage would be able to tell they were trying to set the damn thing on fire. Yeah, well, I will take the role again, but I have some more pressing matters to attend to before I do. Naruto grinned as told them. Oh really, what can be more important than being Hokage? The third asked and Iruka looked at Naruto expectantly. Living my life, I love the village, but after I became Hokage, I wasn't able to live my life like I wanted anymore and it caused a lot of problems. Naruto told them, a look of regret in his eyes. So sorry old man, but I don't plan to become Hokage for a long time. Naruto told them. The third looked at the boy and understood. I understand being a Kage is a full-time job and doesn't give you much free time for other matters. Have any idea who should succeed me then? I don't want to stay in this chair until you're ready to take my place. Tsunade Baon for Godem and Kakashi for Rokudame. By the time I'm ready they should have cleaned up the council and I'll be free to take over in peace. I swear some of the old farts just wouldn't let up no matter what I did. The village almost went into civil war because they wouldn't make me Kage. Naruto waved his arms in protest. Tsunade and Kakashi, I would have never expected them as Hokage, but I'm sure they did a good job and it's nice hearing Tsunade came back. The third had a faraway look in his eyes. It wasn't easy, but I'll tell when we get her to take the seat again. Naruto told him, before he got a serious look on his face. Now I want to ask something. Why is it I never learned about the Uzumaki clan at the academy? He asked with a hint of resentment. When he found out how close the village was to his clan, he felt insulted that it was never taught and his clan just erased. The third was surprised and anger at what the question could mean. What do mean? The academy should have explained all of Uzumaki history and our relation with Uzushigakure. Actually, Hokage-sama, the information about Uzu Shiogakure was wiped from the curriculum after the Kyuubi attack. I remembered that our sensei just stopped teaching it and it's no longer on the list of what we should teach. Iruka spoke up, surprised to find out Naruto had a clan related to Konoha's longtime ally Uzu Shiogakure. Killer intent filled the room. What? How dare they break the treaty we had with them? Iruka, I will provide you with all the material to teach it and help you teach the class. This is an outrage, the council has gone too far. The third roared, Konoha owned more to Uzumaki and Uzu Shiogakure than anyone else, and the first Hokage himself would dismantle the village if he ever found out what they did to his relatives, not to mention the other two Kage and two Uzumaki they were close to. He looked at Naruto sadly and realized just how much he missed about his family. Naruto-kun, I'll hand over everything we have on your clan and let you to live in the Uzumaki compound. The third told the boy he failed. He planned for Naruto to learn about his clan, and only now he realized just how bad it was and why he was so desperate to know his family before. Wait, Uzumaki compound? Naruto questioned, having never heard about it before now. Don't you know it? He asked, a hint of suspicion. How could he not know about the place the Uzumaki owned? I know about the Uzumaki clan's mask storage temple on the outskirts of the village, but by the time I started looking for more about my clan it was lost or destroyed. Naruto spoke. It was a sore spot with him that his clan was basically erased from history. The third pondered this, before he asked, was there ever a major attack on the village? The look Naruto gave and how he masked his emotions provided his answer. I see, the Uzumaki compound has seals that make it impossible to find if you don't know where to look, and it's so old that it would have been forgotten about. If the seals were activated from an attack, then the compound would have been hidden from normal people and all knowledge it had protected. The third stated and was happy when Naruto smiled and got excited. Seeing the boy act his age warmed his heart, knowing that Naruto never completely changed from the boy he knew. You mean I can learn about my clan? Naruto asked with hope, and the third thought. Yes, and not just you, but everyone will. Sarutobi thought, not letting the slight against Uzumaki go on anymore. No one has sacrificed more for this villager than the Uzumaki. Their whole country was destroyed because of it, in the end. The old man thought, memories of the land of Whirlpool's last stand and just how much of an affect it had on the war. Yes, the record would have been kept safe and all the Jutsu Mito and your parent left would be in there. The third told him, hell yeah. Naruto shouted as he jumped and landed on his butt, still not used to difference between his new and old body. Finally, he would find out about his family, about his clan. Now if there is no more to discuss you are. The third was stopped before he could finish and dismiss the meeting. Wait, Orochimaru plans to attack during the Chunin exams finals. We should start preparing now. Naruto said. At the mention of his old student, the third's eyes hardened. Naruto wanted to tell him about how Orochimaru was sort of a good guy in his time, but it wasn't time yet for that. Thank you for the warning. Anything else? The third said in a somber voice. Nope, that's it for now, I'll say more after I graduate. Naruto saluted. Okay, then you two need to get to the academy. Naruto, come by tomorrow and I'll show you the compound. The third told the boy, and Naruto's eyes shone with excitement. Okay, I'll see you. Naruto ran out the room, but he rushed back and said one more thing. Oh, and use shadow clones to do paperwork and train some more and get back into shape. As Naruto said those words, the third's head hit the desk and he ran off smiling, a fox-like grin on his face. Damn you, Minato, that was your secret, why didn't you tell me? Hiruzen kept banging his head on the desk again and again, as muttered curses to his predecessor, for keeping the secret to defeating paperwork to himself. Before Iruka could follow, the Hokage ordered him, his head still hitting the desk as he did. Iruka, keep an eye on him. Iruka looked back at his leader. You still don't believe him? He questioned. Hiruzen stopped hitting his desk and answered. No, I believe him, but Naruto-kun is hiding some things from us, and even though I trust him, I can tell that he was burdened by something big. Truth is, I had many more questions, but they will have to wait. It looks like the day has taken quite a toll on Naruto-kun already. Iruka, everything Naruto mentioned is a triple S rank secret and you can't mention it at all, is that understood? Iruka nodded as he left the room after Naruto. So many revelations revealed already, and he just knew a lot more would happen with his student by the end of the day.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.